Hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic.
Tom, John, thank you for sitting down with me once again and continuing this conversation. This week, we're going to be talking about what you guys, not me, what you guys have both said is probably the most important step in this process, which is taking an inventory. Step 4 in the 12 steps of AA says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. The first thing that I want to ask both of you is just why is this taking a moral inventory of yourselves and your lives, why is that the most important part of this process? Tom, go ahead.
When you give up alcohol, it leaves a hole in you. And something needs to fill that hole. And in order to fill that hole, the process says, first of all, you have to know who you are. You have to know what has been going on in your life and where you've had issues with your moral living. So you do that by sitting down and writing out your story. And there are different ways you can do it. One of the best ways that people have suggested to do it is make a list of all the resentments you have. But I wrote my story. And it can be as long or as short as necessary, but it's got to be honest. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory. So it's got to be both searching and fearless. In order to know who we are and to go through the process, you have to do that. You have to be honest with yourself, and then you have to be honest with God and somebody else. One of my friends said that step 4 through step 8 are cleaning up the wreckage of the past. And that's where you have to go in order to get to the present.
John, how does this process, how does this step, taking inventory, why is it to you? You are going through this process currently. Why do you feel this is the most important step in this process, taking inventory?
It's not only what's going on in the background, the whole idea of I need to drink. I feel a need. I feel this overwhelming desire to drink. Well, like somebody asked me one time, well, what's going on? Alcohol is not the issue. A lot of times, it's something that's driving the issue. That's just the response. The actual drink was running away from whatever was going on in the background. What's happening inside? And there was a good deal of stuff that I needed cleaning. Like I think I mentioned it to you earlier, the 3 principles that I was told one day. It's like, have faith in God, clean house, and serve others. That's something that developed along the way. But at the time, those things were so far removed from me. I guess I just didn't, I knew there was something that was, I could feel there was something that wasn't right inside. Something I was doing, the way I was living my life wasn't right. It was just, it needed changing. And that was, I just had to find the direction, so.
Tom, do you agree with that? That it's not just the drinking alcohol you needed to change, but it's life changes or habitual changes that you needed to address. Yes. In addition to that?
I think it's important for people to understand that addiction, drug addictions and alcohol addictions particularly, are not only physical problems, they're mental and spiritual problems. And that's why you need an inventory step to identify all of these areas, not just your drinking behavior, but how did it affect you mentally? How did it affect other people mentally? How did it affect you spiritually? How did it affect other people spiritually? And when you got to put all that together to find out who you are.
I think one of the one of the things in taking inventory, and we all do it. Like we do it, in our own lives, with things that we're involved with and things that's going on. We just kind of have like a mental inventory, and it's like, okay, I need to work on that. I need to work on that. One of the things that I've heard over the years and talking to other people about this is there's a sense of humility that you have, that your sense of pride goes down. You have a sense of humility, which kind of opens to a generosity of spirit. It kind of opens you up. Would you guys agree to that?
Yeah.
Tom,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole process is a process of opening up and of being in a position when you reach, well, let's just talk about one thing. You said everybody takes an inventory at some point or another. The 10th step is after we do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, it says we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So that we want to continue that process of who we are, what we're doing on a daily basis, and when we are wrong, admit it. That's one of the hardest things for us to do, is admit when we're wrong.
Yep.
But if we don't do that, we lose what we call sobriety.
John, on that exact point, you said earlier, and both you said this, that this is a process that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Right. So tell me about this important step. And Tom, you mentioned this, that's in step 10, but we're all, I mean, all of us, and everything that we're doing, we constantly need to check ourselves, right? Take a moral and personal inventory on what's going on. You guys, in your process, you're needing to do that for the rest of your life, just like we are, to stay sober, correct? Talk about that a little bit. Talk about taking that inventory and kind of what that's, kind of how have you done that over the past couple of years, right? Is it every now and then? Is it a habitual thing? Is it a daily thing? And it may not be just on your overall life, but on just little things. Just talk about that a little bit.
I think initially, it was a very humbling experience. You need to humble yourself to, because part of it is that surrender. You have to admit you're broken. And it's a very humbling experience taking personal inventory, that, admitting that these are the things, these are the flaws in my character that I need to work on. These are the things that are preventing me from becoming a better person. And initially, it was, a very tedious series of steps. But now I think I do it on a very regular basis. I pray about it all the time. I pray that I have, the insight and, God's vision to be a better person. They throw out the phrase, "What would Jesus do?" Mm-hmm. A lot of times I think to myself, well, that's what I should be doing. How do I act around people? How am I going to treat the people around me? But that wasn't the way it was when it was first. But that's what it's kind of, in essence, evolved to. Is it starts out as part of the process, but it becomes part of your life.
That's great. That's a great phrase, that it's a part of the process, but it becomes part of your life. I love that phrase. Taking inventory also, taking personal inventory, you don't do it, it's not only just you. And you mentioned this earlier, that the biggest first step on this is to open up and surrendering and admitting that you're an alcoholic to your peers in the meetings. Talk to me about, and we talked about this a little bit, about when you take personal inventory, it's not just you. It's a group, right? It's a group of you. It's your peers in that room that are, and we'll get to this later about becoming accountable, but they're the ones that are helping you along and providing feedback, and which ultimately could lead to sponsors for your, for AA. Tom, talk about what getting feedback from others on you taking your inventory, and also how that led you to have a sponsor and become a sponsor.
Well, certainly getting a sponsor is in large part a result of the influence of the other members of the group. They will tell you up front, you need a sponsor. If you want to stay sober, if you want to get sober and stay sober, you need a sponsor. So the group influences you in that regard. Once you get a sponsor, it is my experience that taking the inventory is a very personal thing. Okay. And it's something that many people don't want to share with the whole group. So they will take it and then they will share it with their sponsor, which is the fifth step. And the sponsor will help them identify the nature of their wrongs. Not just, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. What does it mean? So you brought up pride earlier. Mm-hmm. A lot of our wrongs that we commit are based on pride. There's 7 deadly sins we use: pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. Pride's the first one. Mm-hmm. So when you identify where they fit, you're in a much better place to do the next step, which is to turn it over to God. Because God is looking at your behavior patterns, at what's causing it, the deep-seated cause for your behavior patterns. And that's those deadly sins, as they're called, are what really is your cause for your behavior.
John, how following up on that, how hard was it when you were first going through this process? As you mentioned earlier, Easter Sunday here is where the process initially almost started for you. How hard was it for you to open up to God initially and talk to God about, not only talk to others, but talk to God about, because God is such an important part of AA.
Very much.
How tough or how easy was it to open up to God about your process, about this, in addition to opening up to your fellow AA members?
Like I said, it started on Easter Sunday, and it took months. My sobriety date wasn't until July, but I knew that there was issues in the background, and I felt a drawing towards God, and I'd been so estranged away from our Lord for so long, and it was a difficult process. I had to find my way back, because God didn't leave me. I had left God, and finding that path back was it's like you're on a journey and you don't quite know where you're going. And, it was just I think I was being guided. He had to find my way to get me there. And it was difficult, but it was a definite draw. I mean, I could feel that there was something bringing me back. I knew that there was something because I kept finding myself wanting to God in my life. And the paths were completely separate, but they became interrelated. So.
And that probably opening up to God in addition to opening up to your peers, probably helped you. It probably helped you to be able to take this personal inventory of yourself, to kind of examine your life. Like, okay, here's what I need to change, and here's what I need to prove on. But not only with your peers in AA, but with God, it's like you're realizing you're not alone. Is that right?
Well, you realize you're not alone in the first instance because of the community. It's, to me, the next step was a bit down the road to have a relationship with God that was strong enough to know that I wasn't alone. As I told you before, I struggled with that. I was an atheist when I came into AA, and it wasn't until I was sober 2 or 3 years that I came to a point where I said, if there's no God, it doesn't matter. But if there is a God, I need him. And that was really the breakthrough for me to begin that relationship with God.
The last question on this topic. In addition to talking to the man upstairs, probably in taking inventory on yourself, one of the biggest aspects of this is talking to your peers that are in that room, because again, we talked about it's comfort, and they're going through the process with you. You mentioned earlier that, with the exception of your sponsor when it becomes official, that they're not in there. You're not in there to give advice. You're there to share experiences, and I think both of you two have shared with me that because of that, that's a big part of this process, is them sharing experiences. You're able to relate to it, right? And by relating to it, that allows you to, one, admit and take inventory. Talk about that a little bit, because you've been going through this most recently, about how other people in that room are sharing experiences and how it relates to you, and how it has allowed you to take your own inventory in your life in this process.
I think I made reference to it earlier that, you walk into that room and everybody is at a different level of brokenness, but everybody's admitted at that point in time that, okay, I have a problem, I need to be here. And the people around that room that are sharing, you hear different stories, you hear different, people expressing their thoughts, their emotions, their what's going on in their world. And you can relate to a lot of that because there's a lot of similar situations, either that you've been through or that you're going through. And the collective of people sharing in that room have a tendency to strengthen the whole. And it's a lot of, you find yourself nodding a lot, going, been there, done that.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a conversation after a meeting, just say, I've been there. They got a phrase that they use in the meetings that keep coming back. It works if you work it. There's strength in those places.
Strength in numbers.
Oh, I appreciate. Right. I always tell people, I appreciate you all being here today. Because of you, have another day sober.
Humble.
Absolutely.
That's what this is. That's being humble. I appreciate you being here. Say that phrase one more time.
I appreciate you being here. Because you're here, I have another day sober. It's a gift.
That's taking inventory. Humble, humility. Thank you, guys. Thank you for taking the time to share. Appreciate it.